An unexpected evening, when Elon Musk's son changed everything. A Fame Finder original story. The waves crashed rhythmically against the shore of Mar-a-Lago, nature's metronome counting the seconds of what was about to become a historic encounter. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the sprawling estate that had become both a fortress and a symbol. Inside, chandeliers cast a golden glow on polished marble floors, illuminating a scene few would ever witness. In a private lounge far from the cameras, far from the strategists and the constant buzz of politics, three figures sat in an unexpected triangle. Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and between them, a boy with piercing blue eyes. XAEA-12 Musk, most people simply called him X, wasn't supposed to be there. This was meant to be a closed-door meeting between two of the most unpredictable and influential minds on the planet. AI, censorship, space colonization, perhaps even the next election. These were the expected topics of discussion. He wanted to come. Elon had shrugged when Trump's assistant raised an eyebrow at the child's presence. Figured it'd be interesting for him. Trump, never one to say no to an audience, had laughed. Kid already got better taste than most politicians. Now they sat, 3 generations, 3 legacies, 3 futures converging in this unexpected moment. The meeting begins. Civilization's heading toward a precipice, Musk said, swirling amber liquid in his glass. We're approaching the point where decisions about AI need to be made now, or we risk losing control forever. Trump leaned in, his voice dropping lower. So what's the move, Elon? You going to run for something, or just pull strings from the sidelines? Musk smirked. You know I prefer to build things. Trump gestured vaguely. That's what they said about me before 2016. A chuckle. A sip of whiskey. The air between them charged not with hostility, but with the weight of 2 men who had shaped the world in their own ways. Then came the shift. The moment neither of them expected. X tilted his head, looking directly at Trump. Mr. Trump, he said, his voice clear and unshaken, are you afraid of being forgotten? The room went still. Musk stopped mid-sip, his eyes flicking to his son. Trump's expression froze for just a fraction of a second, so quick that most people wouldn't have noticed. But Musk did. Then, as expected, Trump laughed, that signature Trump laugh, part amusement, part performance. Forgotten? Kid, I've got my name on buildings from here to Scotland. They'll be talking about me long after we're all gone. X didn't blink. That's not what I mean. Trump leaned back slightly. Oh yeah? What do you mean then? The question that changed everything. The boy spoke as if he had rehearsed this moment in his head 100 times. Maybe he had. I mean, when people talk about you 100 years from now, what will they actually say? Will they just remember your name, or will they remember who you really were? The air changed, not in a dramatic way, not like a courtroom moment or a debate stage knockout. It was quieter, heavier. For the first time in the conversation, Trump didn't have an instant response. A flash of something crossed his face. Not fear, not anger. Something deeper. Reflection. For a man who had built his entire life on winning, on being larger than life, the question cut through everything. Would the world remember the victories or the controversies? Would they remember him as a leader, a fighter, or a name in history books surrounded by noise and debate? Musk stayed silent. He wanted to see how Trump would respond. Trump exhaled, tapping his fingers against the table in thought. Well, kid, he said finally, voice measured, let me tell you something. The trick isn't making people remember your name. It's making them remember why you mattered. X tilted his head. And why do you think you matter? Trump's fingers stopped tapping. His eyes met the boy's, and for the first time all night, he didn't have an answer right away. Musk watched, intrigued. He had seen Trump talk himself out of impossible situations, outmaneuver entire governments, crush political rivals with a single sentence. But now Trump was thinking. Not performing. Not defending. Thinking. And that was when Musk knew this conversation wasn't over. It was just beginning. Depth from unexpected places. For a long moment, The only sound in the room was the faint hum of the ocean outside. The waves rolled against the shore, rhythmic and unbothered by the weight of the question that now hung between them. Trump, always quick on his feet, always in control of the narrative, was staring at the boy. Musk didn't intervene. He knew his son, knew how his mind worked. X wasn't asking to be rude or to challenge Trump for the sake of it. He asked because he genuinely wanted to know, because he had been thinking about this for a long time. Trump leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. His expression shifted, no longer the casual, joking tone he wore in public. "I've built things," he said finally, his voice lower now, less performance, more personal. "More than most men ever will. Towers, hotels, casinos, golf courses, a presidency. You name it." X nodded. "And when those things are gone?" Musk almost smirked. His son didn't waste words. He got to the point. Trump exhaled. "They won't be gone. My name is on them." X tilted his head. "But names fade." Musk could see the smallest flicker in Trump's eyes. X wasn't wrong. Time erodes everything. Buildings crumble, businesses change hands, even countries rewrite their own histories. What lasts? Trump tapped his fingers on the table again, a steady, rhythmic sound. Then, in a measured tone, he said, "It's not just about what you build. It's about how you make people feel." Musk raised an eyebrow. That was unexpected. Trump continued, "You think people remember George Washington just because his name is on a dollar bill? No. They remember how he made them feel. They remember the fight, the leadership, the way he changed things." X listened intently, absorbing every word. "So what did you change?" Another beat of silence. Musk's gaze flickered toward Trump. He was waiting, too. Trump exhaled through his nose. "I woke people up." X furrowed his brow slightly. "I made people realize that power isn't just for the elite," Trump said, his voice firmer now. "That they don't have to listen to what some journalist or some politician tells them. That they can fight." Musk could tell that this was the real answer, not just words, but the core of how Trump saw himself. Trump leaned back slightly, watching X carefully. "You ask if I'm afraid of being forgotten. I'm not, because I know one thing, I made them listen." X sat quietly for a moment, thinking. Then, in that same calm, unshaken voice, he said, "But being remembered isn't the same as being understood." Trump stilled. Musk saw it immediately, that rare moment when Trump wasn't sure if he was being challenged or if he was being given something to actually think about. The room felt heavier now. The conversation shifted into something more than just a passing discussion. Musk finally spoke. "You changed things," he said, nodding slightly. "But do you think they'll remember the right things? What truly matters?" Trump narrowed his eyes slightly, but there was no anger. If anything, there was consideration. The weight of that question wasn't just about him. It was about every leader who had ever tried to shape the world, every empire that had risen and fallen. What does history actually remember? What part of you does it keep? Trump exhaled, rubbing his fingers together. He glanced at Musk. "You ever wonder about that?" Musk shrugged. "All the time." A smirk twitched at the corner of Trump's mouth. He gestured toward X. "He gets it from you, doesn't he?" Musk smiled faintly. "No. He gets it from himself." Trump looked back at X. "All right, kid, since you're so full of questions, let me ask you one." X blinked but nodded. Trump steepled his fingers. "What do you think matters most? What's the thing that makes a man truly remembered?" X thought for a long moment. Then he answered, and what he said left both men in silence. "It's not power," X said simply. "Not money. Not even the fight." Trump tilted his head slightly, intrigued. X continued, "It's the way you change the people closest to you." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Musk let out a small chuckle, shaking his head. "That's actually profound." Trump, however, wasn't smiling. He was studying the boy, his face unreadable. "Explain." X leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on the table. You talk about waking people up, about making them listen. That's big. But history isn't just made by big moments. It's made by small ones too. Trump narrowed his eyes. Go on. X took a breath. Most people don't remember the names of kings. They don't remember the exact words of speeches. They remember how those leaders changed their parents, their families. They remember what those people became because of the world they lived in. Trump exhaled through his nose. X continued, you say people will remember you because you made them listen. But what if they remember the anger more than the message? What if they remember the fight, but not why you fought? Musk leaned back slightly, impressed. Trump was silent, and then, in a voice lower than before, he said, so you think I failed? X shook his head. I think you changed the world. A pause. But I don't think you get to choose how history writes you. Trump's expression flickered. Musk could tell the words had hit somewhere deeper than Trump was willing to admit. Trump tapped his fingers against the table again, his signature thinking gesture. Then, after a long moment, he asked, and what about your father? X blinked. Trump gestured toward Musk. You said people remember how a leader changes the people closest to them. So tell me, how did he change you? Musk arched an eyebrow but remained silent. X glanced at his father, then back at Trump. Then, with complete honesty, he answered, he taught me that even the smartest man in the world can still be wrong. Musk smirked slightly. I'm assuming that's a compliment. X shrugged. It means you're not afraid to fail. And that's why people believe in you. Trump exhaled, shaking his head with something between amusement and deep thought. That's an interesting answer, kid. X nodded. Because it's true. Another pause. Then Trump looked back at Musk. You're raising a thinker, he muttered. Musk chuckled. Wouldn't have it any other way. The conversation should have lightened then, but it didn't, because something had changed. The words still hung in the air. History doesn't always remember the reasons, just the impact. Facing the deepest question, Trump suddenly turned serious again. He leaned in. So tell me, X, do you think you'll be remembered? X held his gaze, his face calm. I don't care if I am, he said. Trump arched an eyebrow. Why? X's answer came without hesitation. Because the people I love will remember me. And that's enough. Silence. For the first time all evening, Trump had no immediate response. Musk folded his arms. Now that's an answer. Trump exhaled slowly. He glanced down at the table, rubbing his fingers together in thought. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he admitted something neither Musk nor X expected to hear. I don't know if that's enough for me. Musk sat up slightly. X frowned. Trump looked away for just a second, as if considering whether he should have said that out loud. But the words were already there. Raw. Honest. Vulnerable. Musk had known Trump for years, but this was different. And before anyone could say another word, Trump looked up, his eyes sharper now. But I do know one thing. Musk and X waited. Trump smirked slightly. I like you, kid. X smiled. Faint. I know. Musk chuckled. Took you long enough to admit it. Trump leaned back, shaking his head. And for the first time that night, he looked at the ocean, not the past. The waves crashed rhythmically against the shore, filling the silence that had fallen over the table. The air smelled of salt and night, thick with something unspoken. For the first time, Trump didn't have an answer. Musk noticed it immediately. He had seen Trump in countless debates, in business deals, on the global stage, always with a comeback, always with a retort, always ready to win the conversation. But now he was just thinking. X wasn't watching the ocean. He wasn't even looking at Musk. He was watching Trump. You don't know if it's enough, X finally said, breaking the quiet. Trump exhaled sharply through his nose, glancing at the table. I don't like losing. And I don't like being forgotten. Musk smirked slightly. You won't be forgotten. Trump's expression remained unreadable. X tilted his head. Is that why you fight so much? Trump's gaze snapped back up to him. X continued, because if you stop fighting, you feel like you'll disappear. Musk arched an eyebrow. Trump studied the boy for a moment, his finger tapping lightly against the wooden surface. Then, with a dry chuckle, he muttered, "You ask a lot of damn good questions for a kid." X shrugged. "Someone has to." A deeper revelation. Trump let out a breath, sitting back. He glanced at Musk. "He get this from you?" Musk smiled faintly. "Partially." Then, after a pause, he added, "Partially not." Trump smirked. "That's an interesting way to say you don't have all the answers." Musk chuckled. "Nobody does." X leaned forward slightly. "But you never answered my question." Trump's smile faded just a bit. "Which one?" X didn't hesitate. "What are you afraid of?" Silence. Musk sat up slightly, genuinely curious now. He wanted to hear the answer too. Trump tapped his fingers against the table, his signature move when he was thinking. He could have dodged the question. He could have turned it into a joke, dismissed it, brushed it off like he had done 1,000 times before. But for some reason, he didn't. Instead, he let the words sit there. Then, softly, he said, "Becoming small." Musk blinked. X furrowed his brow. "What do you mean?" Trump exhaled slowly. He didn't look at either of them when he answered. "I've built. I've fought. I've been on the biggest stage in the world." His voice was measured, steady. "When you've done that, you know what the worst thing is." X waited. Trump finally looked up, feeling like none of it mattered. Musk exhaled, rubbing his jaw. He understood that feeling. He had spent his life building impossible things, pushing humanity forward, making history. But deep down, in the quiet moments, he had wondered the same thing. Would it matter in the end? Would the world actually change? X's face remained unreadable. He let the words settle. Then, after a long pause, he said, "Then maybe you're asking the wrong question." Trump raised an eyebrow. "What?" X leaned forward slightly. "Instead of asking if the world will remember you, why not ask if the people closest to you will?" Trump went still. Musk narrowed his eyes, watching. X continued, "Because the world is big. The world forgets things fast. But the people who know you best, they remember who you really were." Trump's fingers stopped tapping. X's voice softened just slightly. "And if they don't remember you the way you want, maybe that's the part that really scares you." Silence. For the first time all evening, Trump had nothing to say. Musk glanced at him, noting the way his expression had changed. Then X leaned back, foldy.